for the marketing that I'll describe. And to anybody who doesn't know Broken Sword, it came well before Dan Brown sat down and, according to our fans, played our game and thought that would make a good book idea. So just let's get that straight. Okay, so as you can see, like Alex says, absolutely unashamedly 2D, stylized in that way, and I would totally support this idea that actually the obsession with 3D that came about, driven primarily by publishers because they felt that that was what was needed sort of 10 years or so ago, is not nearly as relevant as I think a lot of people considered it to be at the time. So, talking specifically about the marketing, I'm going to talk about what we did. As I say, this is not necessarily the right answer. It just worked in this particular case. So, first things first, a marketing plan. I would urge people to write a robust marketing plan. And primarily, it's to make noise, because clearly there are hundreds of thousands of other apps out there. There are other platforms, there are other things, there's telly to watch, there are films to go and see. It's absolutely vital to make noise. And what you need to do then is rise above the other titles and the other entertainment options that people have. And you need to be clear on what you want to communicate. I think what it's about is the story. You've got to come up with something that is a story. I mean, Clayteus Clay, you can see the story. That is exactly what Alex was pushing all the way along. Same with Carjack, same with Astro Ranch. And the reason you've got to create a story is ultimately you want journalists to write the story and you want your fans to talk about that story. Without a story, people aren't going to talk about it. And then in your marketing plan also, you need to schedule everything. It is so tempting to talk about a game early. My God, you know, you're working away. It's so tempting to tweet about it and talk to journalists and things. And, you know, in mainstream games, generally you go live about 6 months beforehand. In the more casual games, it really is important to wait until 2, 3, 4 weeks before, and no more than that, because otherwise people will have forgotten and they will have moved on. So fight back your enthusiasm and wait until it's actually logical to talk about it. So beforehand, what did we do? We recruited beta testers. We absolutely shamelessly stole Paul Farley's idea of a street team, and I'm very grateful to him for that. And his idea was that you get together a group of fans, you get them to beta test the game, which they love doing, and they do it for free, and they give you really valuable feedback. And then you empower them to talk about the game and to evangelize it on your behalf, you know, once you're ready to do that. So actually, it really is a double whammy. It's fantastic. So it's a brilliant, brilliant idea, because it also then legitimizes it. They will come and they will talk about your game, and they will have the legitimacy of the company, but to other fans, they have the legitimacy of being fans. It's a great, great, great idea. The other thing is, if you can afford it, professional PR. We hired a PR company called, no, it wasn't Bastion at all, it was Premier PR. I do beg their pardon. Simon Byron, who runs it, who used to be at Bastion, which is where I made that slip, was running it and really did a great job, because ultimately a lot of editors will freely admit that they get a lot of press releases through, and they will take notice of the ones that come from the agencies that they recognise. So from our perspective, it was a very, very cost-effective way, particularly since so many of the European, particularly, agencies pick up news from the UK. So if you can get it in the UK, it'll get picked up, and to a lesser extent in the US. Obviously, we created a movie. I mean, that's not rocket science. Key issue, of course, is to determine the sales price. And again, Paul was talking briefly about that. So from our perspective, in the case of Broken Sword, Monkey Island had come out at £5. We had to decide, do we match £5 or do we go £4, or do we lack confidence and go right down? In the end, we actually went for £4, which I think was the right choice. And then after about a month, as sales began to drop, we dropped it to £3. We've maintained it at £3, but I'll talk a little bit about that in a moment. We also printed a number of comics. We were working with the comic book artist Dave Gibbons. Dave was the co-creator of Watchmen, and so is big news at the moment. So he was great. He was very happy to support us with promotion of the game through signing these comics. Key element, also get the support on iPhone specifically from Apple. Jamie organised an excellent conference last year where David Currell, who is the one of the third-party managers, came up. And I'd never met him before, and the benefit of that one meeting was just incredible. So get hold of David Currell, get hold of Apple. If they like the game, they will feature it. And if they don't feature it, then it ain't going to do anything at all. That relationship with Apple is absolutely key. And then finally, keep your fingers crossed, because you really don't know what's going to work and what's not going to work. The next stage was at the pre-launch. So at the pre-launch, we issued press releases, the press releases that we'd written with Simon, which really promoted the idea of what this story was. And we invited our beta testers to start talking about it. Now, we only did this once we were absolutely confident of the release date, because the worst thing that can happen is for you to announce that a game is going to come out in 2 weeks' time, get your beta testers talking about it, and then find that actually it gets rejected by Apple or isn't quite finished, and then months and months go by. And you see this all the time. So my recommendation is really be clear. There's no need to announce it until you're absolutely confident that it really will be. It really is very, very close. The other thing to do is to communicate directly with, if you're like at Revolution, we're very lucky. We have a hardcore fan base, and we have a good number of unofficial websites, which is extraordinarily helpful, because obviously the first thing we do is just feed these people material, feed them information. They are enormously excited, and they spread the word. It's just great. And then we can communicate, obviously, directly to our audience through social networking, through Facebooks. There are a number of Facebook sites set up for our characters and for our games, and also through Twitter. And then what inevitably happens is the magazine questions and answers. Because what we're really doing is we're building up for the big moment, which is the launch. Because at launch, that's going to be the point at which there is the maximum interest. And what your marketing plan has done